and that the logo of the show is based around America. Now, when we first designed this, and when I was first thinking about what to make the show represent, everybody I spoke to said, Manu, don't put a giant American flag up. It's going to immediately alienate half your audience. And it will probably increase the other half of your audience. That it's a symbol of polarization and division in our society. And I thought about taking that advice. And then I said, well, if we in the hopeful majority continue to stay silent and just let the symbols and aspects and ideas that should not be right, left, conservative, liberal, blue, green, purple, but should be genuine principles of humanity, should be principles that we all share. There's no reason for us to let these ideas succumb to what I call the partisan industrial complex, to what we call binary thinking, us versus them, good versus bad, great versus evil. We are living through this moment where there's an attack on nuance, where there's an attack on this fact that you can't hold to what might be seemingly potentially conflicting ideas. In fact, that is the sign of human intelligence. And so I want to talk to you about why I love America. Yes, I said it. I love this place. If I'm honest with you, it's what drives me. It's what keeps me going. It gives me the purpose to build Bridge USA and some of the amazing work that our student leaders are doing. And well, if you clip that specific moment, I might have just lost half the audience. People immediately say, well, this guy must be this or that. This guy must believe this thing or that thing. He must either, he must not understand all the challenges of the place, or he must only look at one side of the issue. But let me tell you why I love America. I love America because I believe that America is the most ambitious experiment in the history of humanity. Most ambitious. I didn't say worst. I also didn't say greatest. I said most ambitious. Now, check over to the next week's episode where I actually talk to you about why I think it is the most ambitious experiment in the history of humanity. But for today's show, I want to hold on the first part of that. Why do I love America? It is important to state that when we talk about love, you remember the goal of the show, the hopeful majority, it's a place for us to exist, the people out there that want to listen, want to be curious, that want to hold nuance, want to hold complexity, want to challenge each other's ideas, people that are willing to give each other the chance to be better, people that aren't in search of unity, but in search of a process that enables us to have difficult conversations in constructive ways so that we can solve our challenges. Well, why does it matter for us and me to say I love America? It's because love, I think, and I'm young, so I'll defer to you. I might be wrong on this. I might be totally off on this, but here's my understanding of it. As a young person, I think love means you admire. And I also think love means you accept the flaws. You accept the critiques for that place to be better. Why is it that we live in this moment where I either have to say that I think that America is the best thing ever, or I think that America is the worst thing ever? Why can't we say something like, we love America, and here's why. I love America because I admire the place. I admire the place because my story, simply put, would not be possible without this country and its ideas. For some context, as I talked about in episode 1, about a little bit of my story, I was born in New Jersey after my parents immigrated from India to the United States. I was born here in 98. Then went to live with my grandparents on and off for the next couple of years as my parents tried to settle in the United States. There were many moments where my mom and my dad thought, well, let's just go back to India. It's much easier there for us. And then they saw me and they thought, well, this guy's going to have a much better chance at doing what he might want to do in the United States. I got to pursue my passions. I got to pursue my challenges. I got to meet amazing new people. I got to experience diversity like humanity has never seen before. I got to live both what some people might call a privileged life and what others might call an underprivileged life. Yes, nuance, believe it or not. I grew up in an environment where what is possible changed for me. I am able to do what I'm doing today, an Indian person talking about democracy in America. That is a profound notion in the history of humanity. This idea that we just get to talk about places that we live in, that is amazing. The fact that I get to pursue a career and a passion, my deep-held passion to make this democracy as strong as possible, That is amazing to me. So I admire the place. And yet, the other part of love is also accepting the flaws. I understand and recognize that America has a deep history of racism, like many other Western democracies. And America's is unique, in my opinion. The institution of slavery is not only marred and tarred the way that institutions developed in the United States, but it has set certain populations back. The United States is engaged in wars and conflict that might seem hypocritical to many. The United States has exported and also served not just as a beacon of hope in many cases, but also as a beacon of conflict and challenge. Many of our citizens still feel the backdrop of institutional racism, what many might call institutional racism. There's much more there to say on the critique of America. But that's just to show you that I also deeply understand that critique. I spend most of my life wrestling with that. I spend 90% of my day thinking about, because that is my job, is to understand so that we can help inculcate a sense of understanding and purpose. Now, what's funny about this is if you took the first 3 minutes of this show in this monologue and you clipped the part where I said I love America and then talked about me admiring it, immediately a lot of people that, again, I don't want to engage in label thinking, but let's be real about our politics. A lot of people on the right will say, well, this guy is our guy. He's a patriot. He believes in this place. He deeply admires it. This is it. And many people on what many might call the left will say, he's completely ignorant, hypocritical, somebody that is only upholding and complicit in systems of injustice. And then you take the second 3 minutes of what I just said, where I talk about the flaws of the United States, and immediately people on the left are going to say, this is our guy. He understands the challenges of America. He understands where we have gone wrong. And then people on the right are going to say, well, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. And not only that, why does he deserve, what is he talking? He's ignoring some of the founding principles, what they might call some of the best founding political documents in the history of humanity. But this is exactly my point, is let us reclaim and take back these things that seem to be increasingly victims of partisan industrial complex, increasingly victims of polarized thinking. Things can be great and they can also be simultaneously flawed at the same time. Because any organization consisting of humans at scale or at the local level is bound to be imperfect, from our families to our companies, to our civic associations, to our countries. Because after all, we as people are imperfect. And I think, in fact, it should be okay to acknowledge imperfection, and it should also be okay to acknowledge the other side of that actually there can be a lot of benefit. I don't understand why this is so difficult for us to wrap our heads around. And in fact, as a young person, it's both disheartening, but also something that I deeply believe in, the nuance of ideas, holding the fact that you can love America, this notion that you can admire and accept its flaws. And why does all of this matter? Why does it matter? Why am I waging into this sort of deep end of what many might call a cluster of a situation? Why am I opening up the show to a potential attack? Well, one is because I want to be honest with you with my thinking. I want it to be challenged. I want you to let me know, well, here's where I disagree, and I want to get better about that. That's one thing. The second thing is I think this notion of adding nuance to what might be simple good or bad thinking or binaries or ideologies is that for all of those that critique America, if you want to build a better place, if you want to build a better country, if you want to build a tomorrow that you think is much better than today, well, you have to believe in the place. We got to have purpose. We have to feel like there's something worth saving. If all we do is critique and we don't acknowledge the progress, then what are we doing? It only breeds pessimism, and it breeds a sense of self-defeatism. It makes us deeply cynical. And to create change, as Dr. King and Nelson Mandela and Mahatma Gandhi have talked about, some of the greatest 20th century social change leaders, change requires a deep love for the place because you want it. You want it to be better. So that's why it matters for those of us that are more on the critique side. And for those of us that are much more on the admiration side, well, here's the fact. We can admire a place as long as we want, but the founding fathers of this country would have always wanted us to acknowledge the flaws so that we can keep getting better. The process of getting better, the process of perfection, like it is in every other aspect of life, requires us to understand the challenges, not so that we can dwell on the challenges, but so that we can improve on those challenges, to be honest with each other. This isn't vacuous platitudes. This is an articulation of a theory of change. For us to build a better world, we have to be able to both admire the world we live in and also critique the world we live in.